Hey guys, so today we're gonna discuss a very important subject, and this applies not just to very complex applications but to any applications. So if you have more than one application, this probably makes sense to integrate or to utilize for your organization. So today we're gonna discuss Maven parent POM, the importance of it, as well as to how we can deploy it to Anypoint Exchange. So it lives in Exchange and there is no need to download anything or reference anything else. Everything will be managed from the Anypoint Exchange. Okay, so what you see here now is an example of parent POM. It's super easy to define one by just declaring as packaging set to POM, give it your version, typically it's 100 snapshot, and also group ID. So this is very important for Exchange. Your group ID needs to match your organization ID that you can find in Anypoint platform. Okay, so set your group ID to the org ID, to your org ID, and this applies to anything, a jar or application or POM or some kind of a library. Anything you want to push to deploy to Exchange, you have to set group ID to your organization ID. Okay, so it's very important. Now, as for version, and this only applies to parent POM, to POM packaging. Only parent POM can be pushed to Exchange with the same version multiple times. So basically you can push and overwrite the same version, as I'll show you. I've deployed this some months ago, and I can still issue deploy command and still overwrite it. In addition, you can have it as a snapshot as well. So all the other types, extensions, connectors that you push to Exchange that have a different packaging, you have to always provide a unique version. Right, so if we push some kind of a library or extension, you would have to increment every time you push a new change. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so what's the point of a parent POM? So this is your base, your sort of like a parent class in programming, and you can inherit from it. As you see, what I have in my parent POM is connector versions, mule version, my org ID, and so on, as well as some plugins. I have all the install, deploy, clean, release, MMP, mule Maven plugin, everything set up in parent, as well as some common dependencies that I expect all the projects to have, right? As well as the repositories, plugin repositories, and very important, distribution management. So distribution management, as I mentioned in a previous video, and by the way, try the video, check it out. Distribution management in our case points to Anypoint API, Anypoint. So this way we can actually deploy, when we issue Maven deploy command, deploy to Exchange. So we can deploy our artifacts to Exchange. Now any application that will inherit from this parent Maven parent POM will be able to deploy to Exchange by simply issuing mvn deploy. So then it will utilize this repository that I have. Obviously the org ID will be automatically substituted automatically substituted, then the repository ID will be matched to repository ID in your settings XML that we've discussed in the previous video. Check it out. The credentials from that server entity, server scope defined in settings, will be used to authenticate against Exchange, and then the contents, the artifacts, will be pushed to Exchange. Alright, so this is what distribution management is for. So once again, why is it important? As you see, there is lots of properties, lots of plugins, including MMP plugin that will allow you to actually deploy your applications to CloudHop or ARM on-premise deployments, as well as other little tricks here and there, and versions of your connectors. This is nice because you can maintain all the versions from a single place, and you don't need to copy paste this whole XML sections into every single application you have. They will basically inherit everything you see here, as well as override or add additional plugins or properties. But this is basically a great way to share deployment or build configurations across your projects, share versions of your connectors, so this way you can change version of SFTP connector to the latest, rebuild all your projects, and then all of the projects that utilize SFTP connector will start using, say, 139, for example. So all projects inherit from this parent POM, and if you rebuild them, they will all take the latest. Okay, so that's basically the purpose of Maven parent POM. How do we use it? How do we utilize this parent POM? If we take our sample application that we used in the previous video, we simply add parent tags here, as you see, obviously with group, artifact, and version, and that's all you need to do. So at this point, this application inherits everything from this parent, as well as adds its own properties and plugins, connectors, anything you want. So in our case, for example, because we inherited from parent, all of these properties will be unnecessary. You can get rid of them. You can get rid of these plugins as well, because we inherited them from parent. All these configurations, resources, everything we got from parent. All you really need is just your dependencies for this particular project. Distribution management, once again, you don't need, because it came from parent. So as you see, you can really cut down on the size and actually make use of parent POM and ability to share contents instead of copy pasting, right? So you will be able to reuse your configurations without copy paste, which is great. Alright, so we got our POM, and I will add sample POM as well as the Postman collection to the description of this video. Download it, use it as a template. So now, how do we deploy this POM? Once again, group ID must be set to your org ID. Alright, so as you see, I am right now in this parent POM directory where I have the POM. As you see, all the directory has is just POM XML in it. And all I need to do is just issue mvn deploy. It will once again take values from distribution management, which contains our org ID, right? So as you see, it's pushing it to Maven Anypoint MuleSoft blah 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 with your org ID. So right now we just pushed version 1.0.0 and it's there. It's in Exchange. So there is no need to download or store it locally, even though it's in local Maven repository. But now it's in Exchange. So let's check Exchange. All right, this is my organization. These are all of my assets. And as you see, that's one of the challenging things for POMs. Unlike libraries, as you see, I have this library that we'll discuss in the future. I have Commons library. I have custom connector like JSON logger. I have API things, but there's no parent POM, right? And as a matter of fact, I use this graphical tool that MuleSoft provides to build a query to try to query against graphical API and see if we can actually fetch the values. So let me these cookies sometimes make it hard, so let's alright, good. So we are authenticated, and now this is a graphical search that MuleSoft supports. As you see, I'm using latest version 2. This is one of the cool features. I just noticed that there's actually a special selection here, and you can add your content because it's slightly different when you look at the raw. It's actually escaped. So anyway, so this is my search. I'm trying to find if there is anything with a parent POM, and when I search and go through all of these contents, there's no parent POM to be found here, even through the API. Right? Okay, and so how do we find it? The only way is to actually issue a GET with your org ID and with your parent POM with the version and so on. As you see, if I send GET against this Maven Anypoint MuleSoft, I actually have my parent POM here, so it's there, right? So this is how we can prove it. So for you, I've also provided some interesting calls in Postman collection to create asset, to get asset, delete asset, which sometimes is necessary if you want to clean up your exchange. So this is pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, and thank you.